Hello, everybody. Joethelawyer here from Analog Mancave. Here's another episode. This is a special one. It's my first review. All right, like an in-depth review. Like I said, I wanted to expand my channel to be not just DM advice and all that, but actually review modules, old ones, new ones. And differently than how other people are doing their reviews, they might be 10 or 15 minutes long. I'm doing a deep dive. I'm not going to read through it and comment on every word, but I'm going to do a deep dive into this. Now, I have a big old outline I wrote up for this review, and I'm going to use it for every review of every adventure. And by the way, if you hear me say module, that's what we used to call adventures back in the ancient days of the 70s and 80s. So module is adventure. If I ever slip up and say module, you know what I'm talking about. They call them adventure modules, I guess, and now we just call them adventures. So anyway, the first one I'm going to do is, as you can see here, T1, The Village of Hommlet, Gary Gygax. Now, the early part of this review is going to be maybe only a few spoilers, but mostly spoiler-free, and then I'm going to do a deep dive into the contents of it. And as I go, based on what you guys are telling me you wanted to hear me do, was talk about how I change things, all right? So I'm going to talk about that as I go, rather than describe the whole thing and then go all the way back and talk about the changes I would do, okay? So that's pretty much going to be the process of every review I do. It's going to be, like I said, unlike most reviews, I'm going to do a deep dive, get into the nitty-gritty of it, not just a superficial review of the font, the layout, the art, and this and that, and it's a fun thing, and you should get it. And it's just, I've seen so many reviews on this one alone out there. They're just short and really not much there to help a DM. So I'm trying to help you guys as DMs in running this thing to know whether you want to run it or not. And if you do want to run it, here's how to make it work better for you in your game. Okay? So without further ado, let's go into it here, guys. All right. So first, you're looking at here. This is the original T1. T1 was the Village of Hommlet, and it came out first of two modules, because Gary says, I'm going to make the next one, the Temple of Elemental Evil. So this is 1979. As of 1981, it still wasn't done yet. So they got a new logo, new branding, and this and that. And then later on, it came out again, republished in the Temple of Elemental Evil itself as the first part of the temple. Okay, so Gary is the author. Tim Jones is the layout and editing. Dave Champier and Dave Sutherland, Dave Sutherland did the art, and they also did the maps. Okay, so this is Dave Champier on the original one. Now, what you're looking at here is kind of cool. It represents what actually is going on in the temple itself, in the moat house itself. You got these guys wearing the Eye of Is, I think it is, or shirts. That must be Lareth up there. You got the little crayfish in the water that you see there. And that's how the entrance looks, as described into the moat house, all right? And then you look to the back cover, and more people working on, the villagers and whatnot are out there working on building the tower and the fortress, the castle, I guess you want to call it, in Hommlet itself, all right? Now, the second one switches it up. I don't like this art at all. I think this is Sutherland, I don't know. But it's kind of like weird superhero-y clothing and shit. And those are zombies, and they shouldn't be that... I don't know. They don't look like zombies. They look more like ghouls, I think, you know? Yeah, they just... It's action scene and whatnot, but, you know, I kind of know where they are based on the map, and they've got to be zombies. And the back cover, it looks like those guys are burning Rufus who were building. So they kept the back cover theme the same. You know, they're building the... instead of building it, here is, I guess, fully built or something someday. So yeah, I like the first original cover better, to say the least. Then the temple just has a Temple Elemental Evil cover on it, so that's what that is. And the back cover is just a description. Okay, so speaking of description, what does it say on the back of these? Let us see here, boys and girls. Nothing. Doesn't tell you what the hell you're getting. It's just an advertisement. That's all it is for all their other shit that they put out. But the original one, same thing. Advertisement. That's all it is. So they don't give you any idea what's in there at all. And the funny thing is, if you buy an adventure now, right, you're looking at what it is you're going to sack and pillage, or what the enemy is, or what the bad guy is involved there. Here it's like the Village of Hommlet, all right? So you're like, well, I'm just getting a village. There's no adventure. There's no, you know, kill the thing. You know, no slay the dragon. Nothing like that. What the hell? But you are getting way more than that. You're getting the moat house adventure in there too. Okay. So anyway, like I said, this came out in 1979, then in 81, then again in 85 with the Temple. Now, it came out under the AD&D reign, although surprisingly, some of the shit in there is not AD&D compliant. They fixed it with the 85 version. What you have, 79 and 81 are basically the same as far as I could tell. But what I noticed was that when I was reading this, there's an encounter with frogs later, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is the frogs that swallow people as they go in to the moat house. And I was reading, and it didn't have anything about swallowing people. I'm like, what the hell? Because I clearly remember Kurt's guy got swallowed by these frogs. Where the hell is the swallowing? I pull up the 1985, the Temple of Elemental Evil version, and there it is. They have the ability to swallow. And so I'm deciding, well, maybe this was built for BX or some earlier version of the game, and that's why they don't have any giant frogs who swallow, because clearly in the Monster Manual, like giant frogs who swallow people, right? And so, no, it wasn't, because there's no such thing as a giant frog in either Holmes or BX. So he just says, here's a giant frog, and he didn't even follow his own rules in the Monster Manual as for giant frogs. So, go figure. So that's what made me pull out the 1985 version and just sort of scan through that. Now, as far as differences go between the three, 85 clears it all up, fixes a lot of things, a lot of layout fixes, makes it more clear, more understandable. They give box text, all right? For example, let's show you some of the text in here. All right, so there's no box text as to what you're going to read, whereas the 85 version, you have a lot of box text. You have that's the ruins of the temple. But yeah, you get the example anyway. You got a lot of box text. You could read what you're getting. You have the stat blocks are broken out instead of just being on like the same line, like right here. So it's a much clearer version. I mean, if you're going to get the temple a book instead of the original one, unless you just like the nostalgia factor, because it's much better layout. Okay, let's see, the cottage and large barn, more. Let me see if I can show you the same exact thing. Yeah, so there's Burn and Rufus. It's just a much better layout of what their characters have on them, what their spells are, what they're memorized versus not memorized. Whereas over here, Rufus. See, it's way more confusing. All the stats are buried in there. They're big dark text and everything. So yeah, you're far better off just picking up the Temple of Elemental Evil version and getting that. Okay. Now, sort of in terms of readability, the font's okay for its time, but for us old folks now, we need glasses. You could do better. Layout, there's 2-column layout in the originals and 3-column layout in the new one. I gotta say, I think I might be a fan of the 3-column layout better. They don't have box text in the old ones, and it's unclear what you should be reading. You got to read it ahead of time, figure out what I want to divulge, and then tell them what you want to tell them about, like number 21 here, right? They bury shit in there that you got to separate out. Whereas T1 here, 1 through 4, you're getting a much better layout in terms of what you can read and it's just easy. What I like to do is read the box text, and as they're digesting what I just said, it gives me time to scroll down and read the next couple paragraphs to know what's going on. That way you don't have to memorize everything as much, The organization is good, I think. What they did was they talked about like the church, right? The Druids Grove, the various buildings and whatnot here. And then later on, they broke them out. Detailed building entries, like the Inn of the Welcome Wench. Here's where you get the menu of the Inn of the Welcome Wench, right? Here's where you get the kind of plates things are served on, and the kind of cups things are served in, all right? Here's where you get all the various room descriptions of each of the rooms that show up on the maps. Same thing with the trading post. The same thing with the Church of St. Cuthbert. So all the major areas are broken out later. I kind of like that. You give it the quick and dirty at the beginning, and then you break it out later. Okay, so that's kind of nice. I like that organization. Production quality, I mean, it's hard to gauge nowadays because there was no this is the OG thing, right? This is the original. So you look at a production quality, what you're saying is like, how good is it for the time? And it's pretty good for the time. It stands the test of time. I mean, the staples nowadays might be rusted in there like mine are, but they still hold up. They do. They still hold up pretty well. Now, the maps I'm looking at the wrong ones here. The maps are kind of funny for those of you who aren't familiar as to what and why. Some of them look like this. They're all blue. Some of them are black, but some of the blue maps, the reason they're like that is because you can't photocopy it. Back in the old photocopiers, it comes out black if you use that kind of a blue. That's why all these old modules have these like blue tainted maps and whatnot, right? So that's kind of what you're dealing with there. Speaking of maps, that's our next topic to describe here. Now, I like the town map. It's well done. It lays out who's, what, and where. They even have like areas for like the fields and the pastures and everything. So that's kind of nice. They're clear. All right. Let's see. You'll scroll down to some of the other maps here for the dungeon. This is Gary using all his knowledge about how like things are laid out back in the old days. I mean, he definitely was into history. Like, look at this stuff. I mean, the thickness of the walls and the guard towers, the murder holes and the arrow slits and everything else. Even the moat house. Look how we broke out the moat house here. The parapets, all of the Gygaxian languages in this. Arrow slots, alcoves, battlements, crumbled wall. See, he just does a hell of a job explaining. You'll learn a lot about this, you know. And here's just your basic map of some of the moat house stuff, which it's serviceable. You know, it's. I don't understand like why this this area over here with I'm pointing at the screen as if you could see my freaking finger. I don't understand why some of the jagged turns that make no sense. Why don't you just go in a straight line? It makes no sense to have turns if you could go in a straight line. It just costs more money to develop something like that. But that's the style of the old mapping back in the day. It's better than most that he's done. So in that regard, it's okay. VTT applicability, you gotta. I mean, this is made 50 years before VTTs, right? 40 years, whatever. So you got to go out there. Other people have converted these to make them usable on VTTs. So Google that, and you'll find that out there. Now, there's no handouts on this. All right, another category for review. The thing just didn't call for any handouts. There's never any need for it in the adventure itself. So nothing in there. Does the writing suck you in? Is it good? Is it descriptive? Is it set an atmosphere? Yeah, I mean, it does. It's detailed. I mean, in Gygaxian speak, you find out what kind of plates they serve, what kind of meals on. When you're approaching the moat house, that's a great description. It really sucks you in to get the vibe of the place and what you're going into, and it builds too as you get closer and closer. Is there any horror or suspense? Not really. Past horrors, bad stories, right? Nothing new though. Is there any tension? The tension is set up mostly with factions and spies, which the PCs don't know a goddamn thing about until they really get into adventure. So there's not a lot of tension going on. Any sense of the fantastic or wondrous? I don't think so. I don't think there's much of that in here. There's not a lot of unexplainable magic, things like that. It's very gritty. It's very realistic. Is this like a derivative module, or is this something that the regular average GM could whip up in a few hours? No, it's definitely not derivative because it's what things derived from. This is definitely the model that people used to set up everything, a hometown and with a thing nearby, and people you interact with, and innkeepers and NPCs and all that. So next, on balance and pacing. Does it feel rushed, or does it go at a good pace? I think it does go at a good pace. There's nothing rushed about it because it's a pure sandbox. You can do whatever the hell you want or not do anything. You can leave, right? It doesn't matter. The balance between like the combat, role-playing, and exploration, I think that's good. You're not going from combat to combat to combat, and there's a lot of role-playing opportunities. How long would it take? Multiple sessions. I mean, definitely multiple sessions. It's designed that the town is so detailed that it's designed that you're going to be going back to town all the damn time to rest and recover and buy and sell, and maybe even shoot up to Verbabank or whatever to sell the big stuff, and then you come back. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of, it's obvious that you could just break whenever you clear an area or camp in there and then leave or whatever. Now, in terms of replayability and scalability, you can reskin this thing all the time. First of all, the village of Hommlet, you could just take, forgetting the moat house, and just put it anywhere you want as your opening starting town, okay? And then the moat house itself, you could just steal the map and drop it anywhere you want. So yeah, I mean, I've run this and played in it I don't know how many damn times, not to count how many times I played the video game version of it, right? So yeah, you're definitely going to do that. And you can make it work for, it's scalable in terms of, if you want to add more PCs to the group or you have less PCs, you can just scale back some of this stuff. I mean, some of it's save or die anyway. Poison, 50% chance you're going to die on some of this stuff. But that's just the way it was back then, right? In terms of GM and player skill level, it's an introductory module. It's basically for new players and new GMs. So yeah, you're good on that. Now, in terms of GM support, though, he only gives a little bit of advice on how to do things. He gave way more advice in B2 on how to run things. There's not a lot of new advice in here that I think there ought to be, how to handle this stuff, because there's actually no way described in here. There's no plot hook. There's the moat house and there's what's going on, and then there's the village and what's going on. But then some of the people in the village, like some of the NPCs that you might hire on with, they know what's going on, but there's no given plot hook that you'd walk into town and somebody will walk up to you. You got to be like, your PC's got to get there, to walk around the inn, start talking to people, feel out for adventures, what's going on, and then maybe some of the evil NPCs who might hire on with you can give you the lead on what's going on in here. That's the strangest thing. There's no direct plot hook whatsoever. Yeah, kind of strange. Now, in terms of just running this thing VTT or online, it's pretty easy. It wouldn't be that difficult to do. All the old school adventure game systems, whether you're Osric or Swords and Wizardry or Old School Essentials, you could run this thing with any of those. And like I said, you can find the maps anywhere, so you're good to go. Okay, so now that's sort of the high level overview. All right, now we'll get into the nitty gritty of it. All right, the story, what's going on, the encounter, everything, all the nitty gritty. So, spoiler alert: if you don't want to hear any more, you can stop listening now, and we'll jump in. All right, let me take a sip of something here and get ready to dive in. All right, guys. So, what's the overall story? Well, I mean, you start off walking into town. The very first thing it says, your party is approaching the village of Hommlet, having ridden up from lands of the wild coast. You are poorly mounted, badly equipped, and have no large sums of cash. In fact, all you have is what you wear and what you ride, plus the few coins that are hidden in purses and pockets. What you do possess in quantity, though, is daring and a desire to become wealthy and famous. So there's your background and your motivation. Everybody had the same background and player motivation in the old days. You're going to kick ass, get wealthy, and rich. All right? That's all you're doing. All right, so your group comes to Hommlet to learn that if it is indeed a place for adventurers to seek their fortunes. You all hope, of course, to gain riches and make names for yourselves. What the outcome of this will be is uncertain, but your skills and daring, along with a good measure of luck, will be the main ingredients of what follows, be it for weal or woe. All right, so then they go into a little bit, but he gives you nothing. He basically says, you're showing up at this village hoping for some action. And through that action, you're going to get rich and famous. And by the way, you're fucking broke. All right, so it's you got nothing, and you're starting from nowhere, and you're a nobody. And whatever this is old school. Anything you achieve is going to be because of your kick ass and take names. All right, so and then he gets into the notes for the DM and whatnot. But then he just jumps right into the village. He starts describing things in the village. Now, does it make sense? Let's go over the story. You get to the village. It has a deep, dark history. The Temple of Elemental Evil rose up and was thrown down. Rose up 20 years ago, thrown down 10 years ago-ish, right? And they sacked the temple. All the good guys sacked the temple. Evil people fled. When the temple was active, the temple inhabitants were enslaving and killing and ruling these lands around. And they grabbed people and they made them slaves to build the temple itself and blah, blah, blah. All right, so this village, these villagers went through hell and back. And it was only 10 years ago, okay? On the way out, after the army sacked the temple, they went to the moat house, which was a, kind of a outpost of the temple, a thorn in the side of the people around here that they forayed from and grabbed enslaved people and this and that, and they sacked that too. They threw it down, right? They broke off a division of troops and sacked it as well, and then they left. So the moat house has been destroyed for 10 years. Okay, now, you're in town, and you might hear rumors of bandit activity, rather. There are several NPCs in town who are affiliated with the temple, one who's not, Spug Noir. He's a low-level mage, I think second level. He just heard about it, and he wants to go adventure there. But everybody else who's heard about it, who wants sort of a plot hook built into their character description, is an NPC who wants to get the players there so they can either betray them, find out what they're about, kill them on their way back, take their shit, in some cases report back to the evil people at the temple that these players and these PCs are here to, to mess up our game. All right, so really, like I said, there's no real plot hook. And yet in town, all right, one of the first room descriptions is a guy who's a ranger and whose son is a ranger, right? Now, there's two rangers in town. Actually, the father's a retired fighter, but the son is a ranger. And with the ranger in town, even though he's in disguise as a stupid drunk, you would think that he would be out there scouting out. The temple's only a couple hours, the moat house is only a couple hours away. You'd think he'd be scouting it out, trying to figure out, like, hey, what's going on here? I want to keep an eye on that. It's only been 10 years. Who knows if they cleared it out? Who knows what's going on? Every once in a while, once a week, I'll take a walk over there and see what's up. If he did that, he'd be the natural person to give the plot hook to the PCs, right? I think that's what I would change first and foremost is Elmo would give the plot hook to the PCs. Either that or you have the PCs approach the town, and in their approach, let's say they're guarding a caravan, right? And they're coming up from Nob or wherever, not Nob, wherever the hell, I forget the name of the Gnome area and out there. And the Knob Hills, I forget what it's called, but in any case, let's say they're guarding a caravan and they get jumped by bandits and they fight them off. They see where they went, but they got to guard the caravan back to town. They get to town and they say, yeah, we got jumped, lost some stuff, but they fled into the swampy area. Well, and somebody might say, oh, yeah, it might be the moat house. What's the moat house? And then they get the history, right? And then boom, you hear it that way, okay? So I think that's probably the best way to do it. So then once you get the lead to the moat house, the characters then are on their way, and they head out there, and they basically kick ass, take names, go back and forth until they finish the whole thing off. The upper levels of the moat house, the ruin of the moat house, I'll show you the maps here, are they're in ruins, and some of these rooms have like monsters who just wander over the walls and back, like snakes and toads and ticks or whatever, or lizards or something, and they go back and forth over the walls and eat, and they come back, and that's their nest, right? And so the PCs hit this, and they kill them and take their stuff. And also in area number 6, I believe, or 7, is where there's some bandits unaffiliated with the bandits below. They don't even know they're there, all right? So it's another thing you got going on. And, of course, the giant frogs, as mentioned, they will jump you over here in Area 1 on the outskirts, right? So that's the layout. Then you find your way down into the place, and then you get into the deeper, darker shit. The Lareth the Beautiful is the big bad guy trying to resurrect the power of the Temple of Elemental Evil, and he is a cleric of Loth. And you say to yourself, well, wasn't the temple all about different demons? It wasn't Loth, was it? Wasn't it Iglewilv or no? Iglewilv was the witch mother. Jesus, I am Zugnamoy. And so you're thinking, yeah, it's about Zugnamoy, so what the hell's Loth got to do with it? It's because Gary back in the day thought it was going to be about Loth. He wrote it as if it was about Loth, and then it became Zugnamoy later, so he had to like backtrack some bullshit and make it seem like Loth was in there. He was in disguise. It wasn't really Loth at all. It was it's just bullshit, right? It was just because there was discontinuity because of like the 6-year gap between the time the Temple came out. And Gary gave the manuscript of the Temple to Frank Menser, and Menser wrote it, right? So I don't know how Gary would have written a thing, and I wish Gary would have just written them all at the same time, but he's too busy in Hollywood, snorting coke off of strippers' asses or whatever. I don't know what the hell is going on out there. He's having a good fucking time. so at the end of it, you kill Lareth and you find out some information, maybe some leads toward the temple, and you go from there. That's the whole story of it, right? Now, is there a good backstory to the adventure? What I just read to you. There's a couple more paragraphs. Is it an info dump? A little bit, but it gets you started. Did the adventure have a good, strong start? It's old school. You walk into town looking for hell, right? And there's nothing personal about it. You don't have any sort of personal hooks for any of the players or anything like that. That's for you, the GM, to figure out if you want to do something like that. Is there a sense of immersion in this thing? Hell yeah. There's detailed descriptions on a lot of stuff, but weirdly enough, the villagers, most of them don't have a name. It's like, name them yourself. He named the main ones, but that's it. Is it meaningful in ways other than hack and slash? Hell yeah, because there's expectations that you're going to be in town a lot, and so there's so much develop with this town between some of the followers of the Druids and some of St. Cuthbert, and details about the personalities of the main folks in town and how they interact with everybody, little rivalries and disputes and what ifs. It's just fun. It's just fun stuff. It really makes you want to go there and live there. It seems like my happy place is to go to Hommlet. Yeah, so that's cool. Is it linear or non-linear? It's not it's not linear whatsoever. It's a sandbox. You can just leave. You don't have to even go to the temple. There's nothing keeping you, or the moat house. There's nothing keeping you there. There's a lot of role-playing, combat, and exploration, but the only exploration is in the moat house itself. You're not exploring the lands around. There's no hex crawl aspect to it, which I think that would have been kind of good. A little more hex crawl action in there. A couple more mysterious places would be fun, I think. There's no real sense of urgency. Like I said, you could leave at will. There's no good plot hooks to get you involved in it. You got to figure that shit out yourself. There's no personal stakes for the PCs, but I think that they're all every PC, every class has a chance to shine. Not much for thieves except traps, unless you really get into the role play of it and there's some bullshitting going on and some deception. I think then anybody could really shine, and thieves are more natural. The thief players are more natural to be that sort of a person. Is it best suited for a one-shot or can it fit into a campaign? It's way too long for a one-shot. This is a campaign starter, okay? This is what you use it for, is a campaign starter. Are there subplots? Are there twists? No, not really. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. The only subplots that are really going on is what you have going on with some of like the people in town who are spies for the temple, some of which don't even know the others are spies, which is kind of fun. So, it's a matter of people are spying on the PCs and they may find out later or something like that. Is there any intelligent ecology? Yeah, on some level. Like they talk about how the crayfish must have come up through a stream under the thing, blah, blah, blah. But some of the stuff is kind of dumb. Like there's a snake, a tick, and a lizard above here on this map. And they're always there. They're always home. They wait for food to come to them, I guess. Food delivery by way of PCs or whatever. I mean, if I were to do it, I would have a chance that they're out, figure out their activity cycle. Do they hunt during the day or the night? When do the PCs get there? And they might be out hunting, and they may not be there. And so the PCs go through. Room 12 may have the snake at some point, but may not at other points, right? But as the PCs approach, they may see a huge snake slithering over the rubble on number 12 and going into there. It's like, oh shit, there's a snake in there now, right? And so that sort of thing, right? So you never know when they're going to be home. I never liked the whole AD&D, when is the dragon asleep percentage chance thing, but I think there's definitely should be an activity cycle thing. Okay, I think there definitely should be an activity cycle. All right, was there a strong atmosphere to it? Yeah, I think there were two very distinct and strong atmospheres. One is the happy village, like my happy place, and the other one is the dark and nasty moat house. Did it have a strong ending? I think so. Kill or be killed. You can't get much stronger than that. And there's a shit ton of loot at the end. You're gonna level up. I mean, you could go from second to fourth or fifth with the loot at the end of this thing, especially with Lareth. He has so much stuff if you manage to kill his ass. All right, so I'm gonna sort of go over some of the things I jotted down notes as I was going here. So let me put my glasses on because goddamn this font when I get older, right? I just want to go over some of my notes I took on this. First, sort of the broad strokes. There's stats for everybody in terms of how many hit points and what kind of gear they have. Oh, this one is 3 hit points and he's 17 years old and he has studded leather and a spear. And it's like, well, why the hell do I care? It's because recruiting NPCs, red shirts, is an assumed thing in this game. It's assumed that you're going to need these people to, get into here and carry stuff, torch bearers, carry the stuff out, help fight, and all that kind of thing, right? It makes specific note that some of these people will fight and some will not fight, period. There's just nothing you can do to convince them to fight. And that's why, at first I was like, are they giving me stats because there's like an army invading at any point? No, it's just in case you wanted to hire them. Now that brings a whole level of a new dimension to this NPC interaction thing, because essentially when you're dealing with NPCs and they die, right? If the NPC dies, then they have a mother and a father and brothers and sisters. You walk into town and you're no longer getting drinks at the inn because you killed 3 of this, shining stars, the young sons of the town. And so, you better keep them alive or else you're going to face consequences. There's a character in there called Black Jay. He was interesting. He could be a plot hook guy too. He lost his wife and kids, and he's just like a moody, depressed bastard. But he has some good gear and whatnot, and he could, I think there's more that could be done with Black Jay. I think I would use him as an NPC for informational purposes, and maybe somebody who you get to know over time slowly. What if his wife and kids who were allegedly killed in the war are still trapped somewhere, like Nob or the temple somewhere, and you find them? That could be interesting. This is definitely a high magic game. There's like everybody and their cousin got a +1 sword or whatever the hell somewhere. So that's interesting. This is definitely a high magic, high loot game. Okay. There's a lot of high Gygax in here too. Interestingly, some of these NPCs, they don't have an alignment. They just have like, here's how they act. And so there's no written down alignment, but you get a gist of how they are from the description of what they will do in certain situations. One thing I noticed is that everybody in town has a stash. Every farmer, every leatherworker, everybody has a stash of money. And I guess it's assumed that some asshole PC groups are going to like raid the town and thieve and kill and take the money. And honestly, you might do better like that than going to the moat house, because if you could pull it off, well, the high level characters aren't around. But because there are some high level characters in town that could whoop your ass. But if you could pull it off, you might be able to get some of the stuff out of here. But I'm thinking to myself, why is it that it's like so-and-so has 37 gold pieces, 15 silver pieces, and 550 gold piece gems stashed in a vase under a manure pile or something like that? It's because you put these things, I'm thinking to myself, why are they in gems, or why are they in necklaces or some rich thing? It's because these people went through hell and back, and they need to evacuate. They need to have all the wealth they can take with them without having to carry 6,000 silver pieces in a bag. Instead, they could carry like 3 gems, right? So they're ready to run at a minute's notice, just in case. It speaks of like learning things the hard way. Now, Lareth, he's interesting, but you could be doing more with him. What I would do with Lareth is maybe have him come into town and be like, I'm here to rebuild the moat house, maybe, right? He has a high charisma. You don't know who or what he is, but he could bullshit anybody. He's a Lareth the Beautiful, for God's sake, so he's a stud muffin, right? He could take on, wives from town or something like that. In fact, I did have Lareth came through town and kidnapped one of the half-elf chick or something like that, and that was one of my plot hooks when I ran at one time. And he was out there in the moat house and whatnot, I would, like I said, I would go and use him as maybe he's developing the moat house, and the moat house you don't know is evil at first. That could be a whole different way to look at this thing, Let's see. So other notes here. One thing I would do, like looking at the map. All right, I'm sorry, it's sideways here, but like, what were these? It's obvious what the rooms above were. All right, it even sometimes says dining room, living quarters, trophy room, blah blah blah. But the rooms below, all right. I don't know what the hell they were, except these were obviously storage and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 storage rooms and things like that, and cells, prison cells. And then you get to 14 were the crypts, obviously. All right. 13 is a water supply. Fine. 10. I would say that might be like a summoning room or something, or a meditation chamber. But what was off of 11? Why did these corridors go down here all crooked? What the hell was 12? Right? 17, 16, and 18. What were they originally? That's what I would like to know. And if he actually did something like that, the rooms that don't make any sense are the 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. All these rooms that make no sense. If he described what they originally were, they would make a lot more sense to me, honestly. So I think it would help with the mapping. They wouldn't look like this probably. So that's one thing I would say. You might even want to redraw some of this stuff to make it make a little bit more sense if you want. It's not too much to redraw, So that's the sort of things, big picture overview stuff that I was writing notes down as I was reviewing this. Let's see. So it's interesting here too, that in terms of the notes for the Dungeon Master. Now I'm going through the book itself and the little jotting things down that I wrote. Basically, he's trying to say, limit the amount of material your PCs can bring into the village. And if they have too much coming in because of economy, they don't want to break the economy. And it says, engineer a minor encounter or two along the way, like leprechauns, a thief, or some brigands. In other words, if they're coming into town, take their shit so it doesn't blow up the economy of the town. It's like, what the hell, man? Just take their stuff. If you fucked up and gave them too much, take it out. All right, so let's see. One thing, little political correctness infringing upon the game. Even back in 1985, there was, I guess, you had to write things in a different way, because I'm looking at the original cottage with the mild tailor, a bachelor of 30 years or so. He is an expert at making and repairing garments. Now, here's what it says in the original one. All right, I'll show you. Actually, I'll pull it up here. Where is it? Come on. Cottage, there he is. All right. Not in the militia, but he's an expert at throwing a knife and shooting a crossbow, both of which he has, using him at 7-level fighter ability, causing +2 damage and hit his score. He's a badass. He has 2 hit points, but he's a 7-level fighter ability with 2 hit points. Although he just moved to the village, he's not been asked to join the Hommlet Company, their militia, due to his puniness. Puny. He has only 19 silver and a false bottom. I guess his wealth is puny too. He's a follower of St. Cuthbert. Now, if you look at the same description over here in the 1985 version, where is it? All right, let me pull it up here. Oh God, where is it? Come on. What the hell number was it? 11. The cottage. I think the numbers kept the same. There he is. All right. He just moved to the village. He's not been invited to join the militia due to his small size. So it's not, by saying small size, you're not mocking him, right? You're just saying he's small. Okay, so yeah, it's interesting. Although he's practicing and he's trying to get good, he's so good he can throw a knife as a 7-level fighter. That's all he must do all day. That's why he's got no fucking money. His 19 silver goes, all he does is practice with a knife. He should practice sewing and make more money at it. So yeah, just a little bit of political correctness entering the fray here. Let's see. We got, number 13. There, let me see the next description here. So this is interesting. This is interesting. A wooden building with shutters, blah, blah, blah. It says one guy who was best described as slow, fat, clumsy, and placid. It's like, Jesus, man. Kind of blunt, you know? Let's see if they changed it here. Tall and thin, blah, 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 blah. No, I don't see anything about fat, placid, or anything like that going on here. Nothing. So they changed it up to make it nicer. All right, so yeah, it is just interesting. They just said grouchy, wherever the hell. Tall, thin, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, there's nothing there about, interesting. Just, they just changed it up. That's really the main difference between the two versions is the language. They redid some of the language. Like they would rewrite it to make it better. More organized writing, more descriptive, more helpful for the DM. And like I said, they added box text, so that does help. Okay. I like how Gary got into the details of shit. Like over here in room 15. All right. So you have a money trader, the money changer shop, and he has exactly what he has in the shop right here. All right. And then he says, be sure to keep big, bold, capital letters. Be sure to keep track of transactions made so that the trade in stock and trade is correct. For example, gems cannot be obtained when Nero has exhausted his supply, though he can purchase more every 7 to 12 days from passing merchants of market value. That's the level of detail that I'm into. I am like nitty-gritty kind of a guy, so that's good for me. I like that sort of thing. Let's see. Well, I talked about Black Jay already. What's interesting, too, is that the Church of St. Cuthbert, all right, you scroll down here, all right, holy water can be obtained only at this location from the church or from the trader who purveys plain water as holy water. I think the only time you see that is here. You don't get that little bit of information later on when you're dealing with the traders themselves. So it's just little things that are, scattered throughout this place. It's kind of funny like that, Let's see. Oh, we got more language that you can't say anymore. The spinster daughter is only in her 20s and handsome but bossy. It's like, okay, man. Oh, God. All right, let's see. So there's one guy, number 27, the elder of the town here. All right. He's the elder of the town, and he doesn't even have a name. He's just a retired farmer. He has All his money, but no name. Just, I thought you at least give the head dude of town a name. That's the other thing. You guys got to come into this with a list of names you want to use. You probably want to fill them in ahead of time for everybody here. That would be helpful for you. Maybe just write up a little table. Room number or building number, name of the person, and then on the right of it what they got or whatever, what they're good for. How they help you out. That would probably be the best thing you could do. Let's see. Number 28 was funny. Having come to the village about 2 years ago, his family is considered outside and will be until their beards grow gray. Yeah, I used to live in a town like that. Like if your great-grandfather didn't play in the big football game on Thanksgiving or whatever, then you weren't a native of the town. You got to have multiple generations in there, kind of a meathead place. Let's see. Moving through here, down to the Inn of the Welcome Wench. Okay, this is nice. So we're getting into the breakout here. All right. Now, you know what? One little thing here before we get to the Inn of the Welcome Wench, I kind of thought was cool. Little detail and flavor, because around this, where they're building their tower and their fort and all that kind of stuff. And they say here there are workers constructing the new castle. Whenever a load of materials is sent for Verbank, to be half a dozen new laborers with it, and a like number will return to town. A few villagers work on the project from time to time, and all put in a half day's labor once per week. That's kind of cool. That little level of detail, that's Gary. Just he goes deep on detail in some things, and then he can't name the fucking people. It's like we know what what plate the venison is served on, but we don't know who the chef is in the kitchen. It's like they don't have the name, but we do have the prices of everything. We do have the prices. Okay. Yeah, all the prices are here for anything you want. Now let's see. Going through all this stuff, you're gonna definitely get into high Gygaxian here. This is some of the first time I've ever really seen this name here. Several barmaids and potboys will circulate, bringing viands and drink. I had to Google what the hell viand was. Viand. It just means fucking food. Just say food, Gary. Food. All right. Jesus Christ, man. I got Gygaxian, man. Yeah. So, all right. Now we get into the private rooms. This is Zert, the chaotic evil fighter, waiting for a return caravan. But no, he's actually, he's going to go with the people and betray them. He works for the temple, but he's not aware the traitors are also working for the temple, though they know who Zert is. I thought that's kind of a nice little touch there. So yeah, he'll go with you, he'll fight for you, and then he'll betray you at the end of the day. That's kind of good. Going down another guy, private rooms here. We got a couple other people. Fernok of Ferd, a 4th level thief. Private room down here, a strange pair, a hulking fighter and a monk. All right, Colbort by name, and a thin monk, a 3rd level Taruko. All right, what they say here is that Colbert was passing through and fell in with the monk. Blah blah blah. The monk talked him into it. Basically, it says that he's so stupid he doesn't have an alignment. That it's like what in the hell are you talking about? For he isn't. Let me see. The fighter is neutral, for he isn't bright enough to be of any alignment. What the hell is that? Well, I've never heard of something like that before. You're too dumb to have an alignment. What is intelligence? 6? So there's no alignment if you're 6 until you can't be an evil bastard or a good person. And there's no good. So good and evil are based on intelligence level. That's just interesting to me. It's just a weird little fucking thing. Yeah. I like the little touches here that he did for various rooms, like we're up here. Private room, 2 gold a night. Private room with an extra table and chairs, 2.5 gold a night. Now, in case you want those extra table and chairs, he broke it out for you, Now, here's a good guy, Spug Noir. I like this guy. I don't know why, I just like him. I've always liked this guy. He's a young magic user. He knows about the temple. He has 3 fucking spells in his spell book. Assortment of bullshit for exploring dungeons, and he wants to go to the moat house. So he's the only guy who knows anything about the moat house who's a good guy, who won't try to kill your ass on the way out or something like that. But he wants to go with the group, or he'll shadow the group and try to get what he can. But it doesn't seem like he's going to kill you for it. He just seems like a nice guy. I don't know. Is there an alignment listed for this guy? I don't see any alignment listed for Spug Noir. So you play him how you want, right? I've always seen him. Oh, there, I'm sorry, chaotic neutral. There he is, chaotic neutral. So he could go either way, right? But you can change these alignments, make him a nice guy. At least he's not evil and against you. You know, he's not trying to kill. He's not trying to kill your ass dead. I wouldn't play it up so that more people know about this place. Yeah, like I said, Elmo definitely. I think that would be helpful. What's interesting here too is that on room number 8, they're talking about that thief I mentioned there, Fernaka Ferd. They said what items he has, but they don't have any, and he has ability scrolls with no thief abilities, and that's because back then thief abilities were set by level, so you would know a 4th level thief has certain level abilities. This is for the new school guys who are reading this and saying, "Oh, these stat blocks suck." Let's see. Another little Gygaxian thing here that I thought was fascinating. The summer kitchen. I never read this before, or I missed it every time I did. In very hot weather, cooking which cannot be handled on the fire outside is done here. In other words, it's too hot outside to cook with a fire, so you do it downstairs. And in winter, additional cooking is also done here, so the area is dry and warmer than the remainder of the cellar. So it's a little cooking area in a cellar. I mean, that's a level of detail that you're thinking, Jesus Christ, who thinks that deep about it? Gary does, but he doesn't name the fucking people in the town. So, contradictory, man. Oh, another thing, too. This is just some strange Rob Conley level knowledge that nobody else has about him and Gary, right? The sweepings from the fireplace above are dumped in the ash pit from the chute above. They're gathered to use in soap making or fertilizer. Usually ashes from other fireplaces are stored here, too, as there is a grinder and separator mechanism here, as well as no fire hazards since the place is entirely of stone or iron. The area is included because curious player characters have one hell of a time trying to find something worthwhile here. So it's a player fuck you, because you can search through the ashes forever and not find shit, haha, says Gary, right? But it's also like knowledge that ashes were once used for fertilizer or soap making, which I had no goddamn idea. So you learned something in addition. Oh my god. Now the trader's establishment. This is the trader, and they're traitors in a sense to the town because they're evil. This gets into more detail, each room of their place and what they have for sale. So what we're looking at here, I love this. Number 10. They sell tack, harness, wheelbarrows, and dungeon carts. Like, dungeons are such a fundamental part of the world economy that there's an item called a dungeon cart that you bring into a dungeon, you load it up with all the shit you're going to get, and you bring it out. It's such a regular part of the economy. You know what I mean? It's just fucked up, man. Yeah. Now, number 11 is interesting because it tells some of the stuff they have. They have a small black scarab with the glyphs TZGY. Now, from what I understand, that's supposed to represent Zugnamoy. Initials, representing Zugnamoy. So Gary had an idea Zugnamoy was going to be in there somewhere, but it didn't make sense yet as to how or whatever, and it just sort of contradicted itself. And sages might recognize it or whatever, but it's a pass for an area of the temple. But who the hell is going to recognize? What sage anywhere is going to recognize that, right? It's just a pass for the temple that doesn't exist yet as of the writing of this thing. All right, so it's interesting. Let's see. The Church of St. Cuthbert was funny, because they had a whole lot of sayings that St. Cuthbert had. Square corners can be pounded. St. Cuthbert, by the way, is the Cuthbert of the cudgel. He's all about taking your club, your cudgel, and just beating sense and beating lawfulness into everything around you. So the sayings of St. Cuthbert: square corners can be pounded smooth. Thick heads are not made of glass. Salvation is better than smart answers. Some good folk can understand only one thing. Enlightenment can penetrate even the helm of iron. Evil which cannot be removed must be eliminated. Foolishness can be beaten. Lawful correction lies in a stout billet. Capricious behavior brings knots to the heads of those lacking wisdom. Preach quietly, but have a large cudgel handy. So I walk quietly and have a big stick. It's nice, man. All those things are just little flavor things that are kind of cool, you know. Oh, and then there's the sacred trophy room of St. Cuthbert. Copies of dented helmets, maces, clubs, and knobbed cudgels of fame. Cudgels of fame. I laughed my fucking ass off. A cudgel of fame. That's awesome. That's awesome, man. A little more detail, too. And when he had the former head of this church, and also Otis, who is Elmo's older brother, you find out later in the temple, the temple module, that they're in disguise, hidden in Nulb and whatnot. But here you find out that Yade, the canoness Yade, left behind a cache of stuff that even the current church head doesn't even know about. Scrolls and scroll and some money and this and that. So kind of cool, little details like that he dribbles in there that are going to be used later, perhaps useful later. Okay. Now we get into the guard tower. This kind of language around siege engines and fortifications. This is Gary's like forte, I think. He's like, this fucking language he uses, man. Like, look at this lower level. The lower level. This is the ground level where the outer batter, then in parentheses, splay, thickens the wall. As if splay is going to make batter more clear to me. I don't know what the hell either of them mean. The outer batter spray thickens the wall. I get the gist of what he's saying, but what the hell, man? English, dude. English, motherfucker. God. All right, so getting into the guard tower. Now, this is Bernard Rufus's chambers, right? So where they all live and everything. And they got stats on the mercenaries of the town and all that. And what their hit points are, in case you want to recruit them or something along those lines. Mercenary troops to head. Again, the captain of the mercenary troops, no stats. We don't need no stinking stats. Yeah. And then we get into the ruins of the moat house. This is Dave Trampier. He did this. I love this. I love this isometric kind of a drawing of the moat house. It's just so perfect, man. It's so perfect. And it completely matches the map. All right, let me pull up. I guess I pull up a map on this one. All right. So you look at that map, and you look at this isometric, and it's fucking perfect. It's exactly down to the rubble, down to the parapets, down to the arrow slits. Everything is perfect. This is well done. It really is well done. So that's a great picture. That's one of my top pictures of all time. Maybe because I like this so nostalgia-wise. But all right, so you're entering in here, and here we are, giant frogs, baby, giant frogs for the win. Yes. Rotting drawbridge, the spider that might kill you at the very beginning. God forbid you walk in there, he might kick your ass. Now, one thing he does with random encounters I didn't quite like is all the encounters. At first, I thought, oh, this is good. Everything in here is actually something from within, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, you come across a couple zombies, you should be subtracting from the zombies in there. But no, he says all the monsters encounter are in addition to those indicated on the key thereafter. Reference is given to encounter areas only to aid in handling the type. In other words, if you want bugbears, see room 10 for the stats of bugbears. But even if you kill 2 bugbears here, there's still exactly as many bugbears as room 10 says there are. I think in terms of realism, you just need to have less. And less random encounters, too. Check each turn. Every 10 minutes, you're going to get a 1 in 6 chance of a random encounter. If you keep getting ogres over and over and over again. I mean, you might have, 10 fucking ogres. This would be an ogre army, down below. But you're picking them off one at a time. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, So that's the one thing I did not like about his random encounters. Let's see. One thing that I thought was kind of funny, too. You go up here, there's a torture chamber. All right. Where is it here? Number 4. A corridor lined with cells. Okay. This was interesting because this is a cell blocks, right? So people would be thrown into cell blocks, obviously beaten, stripped naked of all their possessions, and then thrown into a cell block, right? So you kill the zombies, who might have been the people from the cell blocks many years ago. You kill the zombies, and you'll go in and search one of the cell blocks, and be hidden behind a loose stone, there is a 500 gold piece gem. Now, assuming that this guy got thrown into jail and was strip searched and everything else, where the fuck do you think he had this stone? Right? It was up his ass. There's no way else around it. This stone, this 500 gold piece gem was up his ass. It should be shit covered, at least, when you pull it out of that crack in the wall. Because he pulled it out of the crack of his ass. Just saying. It just brought me back to that Pulp Fiction. I've had this uncomfortable hunk of metal up my ass for 3 years in the Viet Cong camp. Or, that whole scene, right? It just brought me back to that real quick. Yeah. Let's see. Moving forward again. It's interesting. There's like little changes here that they made from the temple, from this original one to the temple, right? You say like the crayfish in the pool, which is a tough encounter. In there's a tube with a scroll in it, and it is a magic user scroll, push, thinking cloud, and fly. All right, it is airtight, watertight rather, and contains the magic user spells. Now you look at the temple version of that. Okay, the giant crayfish in the pool. Let me zip down here. To be the very last room almost on that level. So there's one slight change that they made. which I thought was kind of interesting. Because the giant crayfish room in the pool, 3 magic user spells, that does not float. Another they added does not float, because people must have played this and said, wait, if it's watertight, how come it's not floating? Why would it sink? So they add that little bit based upon play testing or questions or whatever. I thought that was kind of fun. A little interesting little twist there, And then you get to the end there, and you're going to fight Lareth. Now, the 5th edition, the 5th edition one, the Temple of Elemental Evil version of this has, I think, a little bit more detail or a little better layout for Lareth himself. They talk about tactics and what he'll do in a fight. And what he'll do with the compromise too if he doesn't want to fight. Whereas here he's just thrown at you with all his stats and all that. Talk about his motivations and all that sort of thing. But it talks about more of his battle tactics in the Temple version, which I guess they wanted to beef him up a little bit, make him a little bit tougher. So that was the end of it. That was sort of my notes going through it as I wrote to myself as I was going through. So now back to sort of the review outline. After having said all that, how were the encounters? Were they memorable? Yeah. I mean, I got to say they were. I still remember many, many of these, but is that because I played it so much? Is it nostalgia? It's hard to say. But, I mean, I'll never forget the Kurt's guy getting swallowed by the frog. I mean, that's just forever going to be memorable, right? But how much of this is nostalgia? I don't know. There's a lot of traps for type of encounters. There's a lot of secret doors, a lot of combat, there's a bunch of empty rooms. It's all there. Is there a lot of tactical depth? I think so, especially with the final fight. Gary gets into a lot of detail about who does what, where, when, right? So I think that's pretty good. And they also talk about even the wolf spider at the beginning, his tactics, what he'll do. You can't see him; he's up there. He drops down upon you, yeah. And Lareth's tactics too. I thought that was pretty good. So. Now, was the monster design and the encounter design, how did that go? Were the monsters well balanced? Were they interesting? I think so. I mean, balance wasn't a thing back then, so who gave a shit? I mean, were the monsters new? Everything was new. There was no such thing as, I mean, everything was new. This is the time before everything was coming out. So it's like, nowadays people are looking at adventures and saying, are there any new monsters? And back then, everything was a new monster, right? So you really can't look at it that way anymore. Did they have unique abilities? Swallow whole frog. Yes, they did. Were the enemies intelligent and capable of adapting to player tactics? Not really as laid out. They were straightforward. I mean, some of the bandits up front, they give some tactics up around top level about what they would do in case certain situations happen. Lareth had a bolt hole, but the dumb thing about the bolt hole was that, let me show you the map. There's just something that didn't make any damn sense about it. Was the bolt hole was not near where he was hidden. In other words, if the PCs came at Lareth, right, from underneath, and Lareth's up here in room 17 and 18, but they'd be coming up through the bolt hole area. So Lareth had to fight through the PCs to get to the bolt hole. I would change the map and have his bolt hole be nearer to where he was. I think that would be a better thing to do for him. I think that makes a lot more sense. Let's see. Do the monsters fit well into the setting and story? Are they randomly placed? I think they did. I mean, everything that you saw above, the snake, the tick, and the lizard, that makes sense to have them there. The frogs too, right? So that did make a lot of sense. And even the ones below, I think they made sense. He was recruiting, so he got an ogre, he got a few gnolls. That did make a lot of sense. Were the mundane enemies like the bandits and guards handled in an interesting way? Not really. I mean, some didn't. I guess there was not much that you're going to do with these guys than fight or beat them up and question them, right? And so, they were just there to be beaten. Did the wandering encounters make sense? Other than what I said, it made sense that those types of things would be wandering around, but I didn't think it made any sense to have them not deduct, right, from the total number. Otherwise, there's infinite zombies, infinite ogres. It's just too tough to have infinite ogres. Or have a cap on it, no more than 2 ogre encounters or something along those lines. Now, the NPCs, were they meaningful, memorable? Did they add flavor? Did they evolve? Yes. And all those questions, yes. They absolutely were memorable, meaningful, added a lot of flavor to the game, I think, because you were expected to be in Hommlet all the damn time. Healing up, resting, recuperating, going back and forth, finding out what's going on. And so, they definitely, you had so much depth and detail about these people that you just kind of got to know them after a while. In your head, you felt like real people. As to the villain, Lareth the Beautiful, Was he one-dimensional? Or did he have some depth? I don't know, because he's just there at the end, right? So you're not going to have much of interaction with him other than fighting or parleying for his life, or he's killing you. There's not much going on. That's why I think you should have had him a main character, like he's somebody coming in to rebuild the moat house or something along those lines. And give him some sort of protection against ESP or mind reading or something like that, ring, so nobody can figure him out. Does what he's doing make sense? Yeah, a stated goal to kick ass in the name of evil to regenerate the moat house, and they did say he was not raiding close to Hommlet. All his raids and attacks and building up wealth and all that came out beyond Hommlet, so people wouldn't know in the Hommlet area that what he was doing, right? Which makes it even harder to have a plot hook there, unless people know of the moat house and that there might be something down there, right? Then he stumble across Lareth and his evil plan. So I don't like this stumble across the big evil plan thing, though. It needs to be something more, and more engrossing, bring you in. That's why I think that, getting raided by people way out on your way to Hommlet makes a lot more sense as a plot hook. Was he morally ambiguous? No, he was fucking evil. Does he grow and evolve? Nope, because he's only there at the end. Is he a mystery? Yeah, because of the law thing, and the law thing doesn't make any sense in spite of, because of the temple later on, right? Does he have escape routes and minions? Yep. But like I said, though, the escape route needs to be better placed. And the minions, he has a good lieutenant at his side at all times and blah, blah, blah. So I think that was good. Things like that. About in terms of exploration of this thing, was this a dynamic environment? Were there a lot of chances to explore mysterious places? Wasn't really dynamic, I guess. You got to make it dynamic in terms of like having the snakes and stuff go back and forth, and maybe you see the knolls going in or knoll tracks going over the rubble or something. I think the work is on you as a DM. The elements are there to make this dynamic, but you have to do the work. All right, mysterious places, not really. I think there should have been more of a here's the 5 miles around the moat house, and maybe put some stuff there. Even if it doesn't relate to the moat house, put some shit in there. I don't know, sheds, tents, forts, whatever, something there. That way they could explore. Maybe have a place to camp. They don't have to go back to town, right? So something along those lines. In terms of problem solving, were there puzzles and riddles and traps and mysteries? I mean, the big mystery is what the hell are they doing there, and you'll find out later. A lot of traps, though. Good chances for thieves to shine. No riddles, no puzzles that I remember. Nothing like that. Now, in terms of player agency, was this linear or non-linear? I mean, this is very non-linear until you get into it, and then you just kick ass until you finish it. But the adventure itself, there's, like I said, 2 parts. There is the village, and then there is the moat house. And so you don't have to do the moat house at all. You could separate the two. In that regard, it's not a real railroad at all. The players can do anything they want without having to break the adventure. And do their choices matter? I think so, because they could choose not to do a damn thing here. They could, depending on the player's alignments. Remember again, guys, this is written before the whole hero thing was a thing. These people are adventurers out to make a buck. You had the stats and of all the people in the town, not just to hire, but in case you wanted to fight them. And you had all their hidden money in case you wanted to rob from them. There was no honor. All right, you could just as easily been evil or neutral in this thing. There wasn't an expectation of heroes saving the day. Okay, so meaningful consequences. Do their choices matter? Yeah, because basically what you could do is you could go evil. You could join up with the moat house. You could be a spy for Lareth on the town. You could all that sort of thing. You could just change it up completely. Here's a question: were there meaningful consequences for ignoring plot hooks? There were no plot hooks, so no. But can the whole thing evolve based on the choices players make? Yeah, it's such a goddamn sandbox that anything could happen, right? Like I said, if they're neutral or evil people, then they could join up. They could be recruited by the traitors, the traders. All right. In terms of role-playing, was there opportunity for character development? Hell yeah. I mean, you're going to be in this town for 4 levels probably, right, before it's all said and done. And you got to keep going back and forth to level up and to recuperate and rest and everything. So, yeah, you have plenty of chances for good role-playing, for developing relationships with the NPCs, to learn stuff, moral and ethical dilemmas. Yeah, any of this stuff could come up. I mean, you could get into debates between the Druids and the St. Cuthbert people, which there seems to be a little bit of tension in town between the followers. So, it could be a debate in the inn about the various, beliefs or whoever, and you join in. What if your priest is a in the group is a Church of Saint Cuthbert, and you got a druid in the group. Then you got your group fighting amongst themselves, or some different priesthood or whatever, Torm or Tyr or Helm or Hieronius or something like that, right? So yeah, depending on where you set this thing. Now, were there subplots and a lot of side content? No, not really. But there's the potential for that because you had factions, right? You have the Church of Cuthbert, you got the Druids, you got the Temple Spies, you got just people out for themselves, and so there's a lot going on there that you can mess with. You could have rival adventure groups come to town too. I mean, if you wanted to, right? You could have that stuff. It's there, but you got to work at it to develop it. All right. Are there individual quests for PCs? No, nothing like that. But there are things that, like, for example, one of the traders, one of the people who work in the trading post, they have a guy who's, he'll go out and spy on the PCs. If they go to the moat house, let the PCs find them. Then you have some stuff, right? Then you have some things that are outside the box going on. That sort of thing. So was there a lot of downtime activities and in-game economies to engage with? Yeah, because you're gonna be hearing, yeah, they have money traders, money lenders, or money traders rather, and broken out and have what they have in stock, right? So yeah, you definitely have the economy. You got the traders is what they have. You got the price lists that change and vary based on how far away from the main city you are, right? So yeah, definitely. Now as to the combat, was there environmental stuff like to make the combat interesting? Not so much. Straightforward. Here they're in this room. There's nothing like. Hiding spots or tables or other environmental hazards that you could use or things in the environment. They just didn't do it like that back then. How was the boss fight? Was it great with new mechanics? Not so much. He had protections against being held, which is probably the go-to thing for if you got a priest of that level at this point, you're going to be using that spell, hold person, to insta-win, right? So he has protection against that. You probably don't have fireball yet, so yeah, you're just going in there with your guns blazing. So you're casting sleep spells on all of, because there's no save back then, against all the fighters who are guards or whatnot, and then you move into Lareth and you drop a whole person, and then it's an insta win. That's why he has all that protection against holding and paralyzation and all that stuff. But there's no real mechanics or anything like that. Any multi-stage battles? No, not really. It's just you grind through, Minis required a theater of the mind. You could very easily do this theater of the mind. You don't have to have minis. There's never that many that's hard to keep track of, I think. Now, beyond combat, can you solve combat stuff without combat? Most definitely, I think. There's always room to negotiate. There's never except it's like a monster or something, right? Your snake's going to kill, you have to kill the snake. But anything intelligent, even Lareth's given in the temple version is given like he'll negotiate and he'll pay this if, so there's always negotiation room. And I think a lot of people forget that. They think the old school games are always hack and slash, kill everything in sight and take all their stuff. But, combat's dangerous for players way more than it is today. Their PCs could go down fast, right? So you definitely want to talk if you can and figure it out. I think that's good. A lot of social encounters, definitely within town. Investigation and mysteries, if you figure out that the trading post people are evil, you might want to investigate them. A lot of work is on the DM for this stuff, though. It's going to come down to you to make it interesting. If you just run this as you go there, you fight, you bring back stuff, you sell it, you go there, you fight, you bring back stuff, you sell it, and you don't talk to anybody, that's just boring shit. That's just bad DMing on your part. You're running this in the most basic bitch way. It's up to you to make this town come alive. And by making the town come alive, that's how you get all the extra good stuff out of it, okay? Now, at the end, what about the loot, the rewards? Were there good magic items? Yeah, I mean, you kill the guys, you get what they had, but there's nothing unique. Except in the sense that a lot of this shit is new. Like I said, the same thing with the monsters, right? So, it's probably in the DMG, right? Because AD&D was out when this was published. I think the DMG was out a month after this was published. Some people had advanced copies or whatever, but the Player's Handbook, the Monster Manual, definitely out. So this is definitely an AD&D thing. So if you didn't get the DMG yet, you may not have seen this within the first couple months of owning it. But pretty much everything in there was in the DMG. I think it's not that big of a deal. How about the non-magic items? Was it just gold and gems? Hell no. Lareth had like golden plates or silver plates and shit like that. So that was kind of nice. I mean, you got a whole there. Let me pull it up here. So everybody likes the final boss treasure list, right? Let's see. I'm gonna pull up the. I'll pull up this one. What the hell? All right, so he has a staff of striking with 20 charges, which he might use against you, blah, blah, blah. Then he has his room was lavishly furnished with rugs, wall hangings, chairs, and a couch, cushions, wines, and liquors, dishes of sweetmeats. So there's why you need your dungeon cart. The brazier constantly burns to warm the place, blah, blah, blah. When he carries a 9 platinum and 1,000 gold piece gem on him, in plain sight are silver serving pieces and goblets worth 4,000 gold pieces, an alabaster box of unguent, value of 800 gold pieces, a string of matched opals, 10,000 gold pieces in value, 10 stones, plus gold settings with diamond chips and gold chain worth a total of 15,000 gold pieces. He'll offer that as a ransom. Then he has this phylactery of action, all right, which is like a ring of free action, I guess, immune to any sort of hold spells of any kind. Yeah, so that's where you're going to get from Lareth, though. It's like a good haul, and it's none of it. It's not just gold and gems. It's other kind of stuff. Let me pull it up here on this one. Let's see, the Moat House. All right, let's see what it. I'm just curious if the Temple version changed some of that loot. So, all right, so we got 4,800. It looks like about the same. Like I said, it's a little bit different layout, right? Yeah, and that's pretty much it, though. It's the same loot haul, though. Just a little different layout to it, though. That's all it is. All right, so was the magic and all that stuff meaningful, well placed, to make sense? Yeah, except for like you could find a cloak of elven kind in the ogre's pile of rags that he sleeps on. Other than that, most of it did make sense. Who was you having it? Were they using it? All that sort of thing. Now, as to the ending, was it meaningful? Yeah, because you beat Lareth, you found out the clues for the next thing. Any plot twists? No, not really. There's nothing unsurprising unless you brought in the spies and all that, but that's on you. There's no built-in plot twist. Multiple endings? Maybe. What if he got away, right? Yeah, there could be a lot of multiple endings here. Definitely. What if Lareth got away? What happens then? It says even still that if Lareth is killed and the PCs are found with his shit, they're going to have an assassin's going to come after them, a 10th level assassin. So and back then an assassin just wins if he kills, rolls a percentage and you're dead, right? So can this lead to more adventures or sequels? Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to. It only took what, how many years to get it, though? God, 6 years or whatever since it was first published. So yeah, it's supposed to. Now I think overall, it's a good adventure. There's a lot of nostalgia here for me because I played it and ran it so many times. Different reskins of it or different repurposings of it and all that. So there's a lot of nostalgia. It's a great starting town that you could transplant anywhere and use for anything you want. The Moat House can sit on its own, and you could transplant that. It's a modular, basically. Combining these two together with the village and the Moat House, it's fun. It's a good time. The village is the model for any settlement I've ever done. Any starting town I've ever done is the village of Hommlet. In fact, I've used it and renamed it something and had the same fucking people on the same fucking map in different places. So yeah, it's definitely usable and fun. It's a good adventure. Some of the dungeon shit doesn't make some sense, the layout and whatnot. But overall, I would recommend this to anybody as a good starting adventure, and it's not that hard to convert over. In fact, Goodman Games put out a 2-volume version of the Temple of Elemental Evil. And they have the originals. They have a bunch of write-ups about people who played it or wrote it, designed it, and then they have the various versions of the temple. And then they have finally the a 5th edition version of the temple. So you can actually play a 5th edition converted version of Temple of Elemental Evil with all the stuff related to Hommlet and the Moat House in there as well. That's a whole different kind of review. I should have done an unboxing. I don't think I did back when I got it. I brought it to my brother's house and I just ripped the box open so we could just gaze at it. And I'm like, son of a bitch. 10 minutes in, I could have done a video on this shit. So anyway, it's definitely usable for newer and older players, versions of the game. So, and newer, older players too. Overall rating, what would I give this? I would say, and this is tainted by nostalgia perhaps, I would say an 8. Because I would say probably 8.5, but probably nostalgia in there. But as written, maybe 7.5. So let's round out the nostalgia and call it 8. I would give it an 8 out of 10. All right? So, guys, thank you. This has been my first review. Let me know what you thought of it. I don't even know how the hell long I've been going here, maybe an hour. Let me know what you think in terms of the format, the style. anything else I could have, should have covered, anything else you might want to know about it. Tips about doing reviews. Was it too long? Should have gone longer. Whatever it is, I'm looking for comment on the format because, like I said, this is the first one. I'm dropping it the day after the Super Bowl of 2025. I was going to drop it the night of, but I'm figuring nobody's going to watch it. So if you're watching this live, it's probably 1 p.m. on a Monday after the Super Bowl on the 10th of February, 2025. And I appreciate all you guys watching this stuff, all you maniacs. I still can't believe I have people who watch all my shit religiously. It's kind of strange. I'm a little, it's weird, but I appreciate all you people. So share this thing, spread it around, hit like and subscribe. And let's see what the word of for the phrase that we're going to use to comment on this video for the algorithm would be Lareth. Just Lareth the Beautiful. Put his name in there somewhere. Tell me about Lareth. Give me a little story about Lareth's background. Let's make Lareth more interesting. So Lareth the Beautiful. You guys fill in the gaps of Lareth the Beautiful's backstory. Tell me about him. Okay? That'll be it. That's your challenge for the comments section. All right, guys. Thank you very much for listening this long and watching. I really appreciate it. And give me any feedback you can because this was a first time ever, a unique thing. And I'm going to do one of these a week. It'll be normally every week on a Sunday. It'll be my review. Okay? Talk to you later. Bye-bye.